make sure your goals are rooted. They're coming from a place where you're content and satisfied with where you're at. And if you're not content with satisfied where you're at, that needs to be the goal, is to work on myself until I'm content.
We're back, baby. Welcome, everybody, to another awesome episode of Money Therapy. I'm your host, Bill McGill, co-host. I apologize.
Oh, co-host.
And
yeah,
our
I'm
other
co-host.
our other co-host today is
Brandon. My name's Brandon.
You
didn't know that?
What's your last name, Brandon?
Chasteen.
Wow. All right, everybody. School's in session. We're talking about needs and wants today, folks. Needs and wants. Sometimes people think their wants are needs and their needs are wants. So we're going to try and differentiate some of that. Tell you about some of the excuses we've heard from clients over the years. But we're also going to kind of philosophically talk about, how much is enough and when we've had enough.
Yeah, I think it can be quite confusing. And one of my favorite things, I just want to start with a few questions.
Cool.
Right?
Bring it.
Let's go through this. So I'm going to ask you the question. I want you to try to answer this.
Okay.
All right. Question number 1. What if financial happiness is not about getting more, but about wanting less?
I would say I think that makes a lot of sense.
So that's hard for me to buy in wholly, because I do want people. I feel like one of my strengths, or what my job is, part of what it is to make sure people are aspiring for more, right?
Or to get better at something.
And it's such a fine line to try to tell people it's okay to dream big, but at the same time, true happiness it lies in wanting less, contentment, right? And so again, we're being thematic over the past few weeks and the next several weeks, because it's the end of the year. We're talking about goals. We're talking about goals. 2024. We're talking about our future. We're thinking about, we're spending time with people we love.
Yeah.
And I mentioned before that whole life of consequence versus life of idealism.
Yeah.
And again, that's a work in progress. But the whole idea is there's just some difference that I have not yet defined. I don't even know how to say it yet, but it's in my brain, jumbled together and really confusing me.
Okay.
There is a big difference between being completely content right now and wanting more versus living this ideal life that more will make me happier.
Yes.
Right? More will not make you happier most of the time.
Most of the time.
But if I am super content, is it okay for me to want more? Yes. So when I ask the question, what if financial happiness is not about getting more, but about wanting less? I can't 100% agree with that question, with your response that it makes sense. It does make sense for a lot. But I would almost say, if I had to make the question a statement, financial happiness is not about wanting more unless you're content with where you're at right now. True financial happiness is about contentment, but it's okay. You have permission, if you can get there, to still want more. Does that make sense?
No.
I think it does.
But because I think there's extremes to everything. You can be content, sure, but if you're content as how do I put this in a way that makes sense? The act of wanting more and always be wanting something can within itself be a bad thing. And so whether you have permission or not to want more, that doesn't really make too much sense to me. I I think contentment is good because it gives us a chance to be grateful for what we do have. And I think that within itself is an act of maybe wanting less, because you think back at all the things, maybe some of the times you've been the happiest, was, a lot of people say the times of struggle, for instance. I look back on some of my favorite family vacations were my dad and I going camping out in the middle of nowhere and like sleeping on the ground, in freezing temperatures and stuff. Had the best time. I think contentment is interlocked in some ways with wanting less.
Yeah, but I also, so we got, like, I think if you're talking about this from a larger standpoint, right? Wanting less, like for example, Harpeth Wealth, the business.
Sure.
I'm super content. It's giving me what I need,
Sure.
but I still want it to increase its effect on people's lives. I still want more from the company. I want to give my clients more, and I want to give to more clients,
Sure.
right? I don't need it. I'm content right now.
Yeah.
But there's the other side, and maybe this is just like the age of, like, hashtag 10x kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where, but the adage of, like, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, I want more, but I don't want more because I'm unhappy or not content. I want more because, like, in fact, I am content. And because I am content and my clients are happy, I want more people to have that.
Yeah.
So it's
I think
just
we're saying kind of the same thing.
Probably.
Yeah, I think we're kind of dancing around it, but I think we're kind of getting to the same point. I think it's what came to mind is kind of the magic sauce almost is maybe as a baseline, we all tend to want for more, but it's where we put that effort or what we see as would be more for our situation.
Yeah. I
Some
think
people think that's money, but what you just stated is I want to better people's lives.
Sure.
And within that thought process, we can decide what we want more of. And then we can actually objectively look at that and see if, we've been talking a lot about happiness lately. We can objectively look and see if that's going to make our lives any better. And I think that's the definition between needs and wants. It kind of ties back into that is the reason why we bring this up is, what do you need? What do you want? You got to be careful what you call a need and a want. You got to be careful where you put your energy into, wanting more of something or another.
Yeah. And I think, I just want to say, like, I think it's okay to want more.
Yeah.
It's just about being very, very specific about what we want. And when it comes to that, just simply responding to the question, what if financial, because what the question is alluding to is, like, what if financial happiness is about reducing our needs and satisfying our 100% of our needs because there's fewer and fewer of them.
Yeah.
Versus having wants and not being able to satisfy them, maybe. Or just to your point, like, how many times do we say, man, like, back in the day, it was just so much simpler.
Yeah.
Like, if I could have lived in the 1890s, life would have been great, you know? But I don't necessarily think that, but,
Right.
The point is sometimes we dream about less, but we still fight for more.
Yeah.
And I think there's just a lot to say that we need. Probably the takeaway is this for this question, maybe all the questions, but I think if we can just work on being honest with ourselves, on what is a need and what is a want. Like, I don't need more of anything, and there's few things I want.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. But I think it's because of my perspective.
Yeah.
Right? My perspective is I don't have enough. My perspective is not I don't have enough, I want more. My perspective is I have everything I need.
Yeah.
And I'm super, super happy and grateful for what I have.
Yeah.
But if I can, I'd like more because of this, and this.
Yeah.
All right. Question number 2. What if things start out as wants but become needs? Not because things change, but because we do.
Yeah, I think having some internal reflection and actually calling it out. This question makes me think of, working with some clients and, going from the philosophical for a second and jump into kind of a life example. I've had a couple of clients or prospects I'm talking to, and they're asking me for advice on their financial situation, how to make it better and so forth. I've heard people say things along the lines of, oh man, I really needed a safe, reliable car. I needed that. So I went out and bought a $60,000 pickup truck.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, transportation is something you need,
Yeah.
right? But I think that was a want.
Well,
You could have done the job. I think we can agree you can get something for less than $60,000.
Sure.
I'm not going to pick that person apart, but that's the first thing my head goes to is that's okay, especially like if the person can afford it. Let's say they can't afford that $60,000 car. I have no problem with you buying a $60,000 car, but don't tell me it's a need.
Well,
right? Let's have some reflection.
And that's one of the things that come to mind that I laugh at all the time, like working with business owners.
Yeah.
Right. There's some great tax advantages for business owners when it comes to buying a vehicle for the business.
Oh yeah.
Right. But there's certain qualifications for a vehicle that qualifies as a business vehicle, right? And there's a lot, like if you're ever thinking about doing something like that, you got to talk to a tax professional.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of nuance in there, and a lot of people don't understand it all, and they make some bad decisions, or they make some decisions that derail things. But I digress. The point of this part of the show, or the point of what I'm trying to say, is like you see these small business owners, and they're like, oh, I need a new car.
Yeah.
And if I do it this way, then I can get some sort of tax benefit for buying the car.
Right.
So I'm going to go buy a new G-Wagon.
Yeah.
Because that qualifies, that meets the weight limits, and it does all these things. But
just blowing money.
But you don't, you do need a car.
Yes.
But now all of a sudden that need has turned into this just gross thing that you're putting yourself in financial hardship for.
Yeah.
And I think we justify. I was kind of joking around with you just in pre-show about how I think I need to go get a Tesla right now because of the tax write-off this year.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, I want a Tesla.
Yeah.
That's good incentive, but that's what being a consumer is understanding that there's always incentives. Yes. And how sometimes those incentives we can justify calling something a need. I need to take advantage of this, so the thing becomes the need.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah, and within that, just a couple of points in the notes that we took, the bullet points under needs and wants. We call these different things throughout our lives, and they become kind of taglines, like lifestyle creep. How many times have you ever heard lifestyle creep? Mm-hmm. How often do you actually think about what that means?
And if you haven't heard of lifestyle creep, it's just kind of where you get caught keeping up, a combination of just pay raises over time and keeping up with the Joneses mentality. Yeah. All of a sudden we're living a very, very high middle class life when I've been, this, broke kid for, decades living on no income. But now all of a sudden I've my lifestyle creep without even realizing how many comforts I've adopted.
Yeah, I was listening to Bill Burr, the comedian. He was having an interview, and they were asking him, how do you kind of approach your personal finance? Obviously, you've been very successful. How do you approach that? And he lives very fiscally conservative. He's like, I try and, be debt-free because to me that equals freedom. And he said, I just remember my older brother when I was growing up and starting to get more successful. His older brother worked at, an office type setting and said, hey, look at these guys. They get a new job. What's the first thing they immediately do once they get a pay raise? They'll go and buy a new car. He goes, they've just chained themselves to that desk because now they need that job to pay off that car.
Right.
Right. And this is a pretty like intense conversation. But it really drove home the point, and I even thought it was, I'm still thinking about it. So it was pointed to me too, in that can be lifestyle creep. That can also play into this, the wanting less, what we just talked about in the first question. How does that play into wanting less? Well, or needing less. You were talked about cutting down our needs. That's, having that internal reflection of, okay, I just got to pay a raise. Do I need a new car?
Right.
Or do I just want a new car?
Right.
And what are the pros and cons of folding to that want? And so anyway, just internal reflection and knowing yourself. And like I said, if you can afford it, great, but call it out what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, we're trying, the whole point again of this is understanding, like, we're coming to an end of the year.
Yeah.
And we're going to reprioritize where we're going to rediscover where we're at. We're going to take inventory of the good things that happened this year, the hard things, the things we overcome, the things we failed at over the past year.
Got to be realistic.
We got to be honest with ourselves. We're going to look at 2024 and we're going to set goals, and we got to make sure these goals are grounded in like real things that we actually are passionate about. Otherwise, we're probably not going to follow. This is why, what is it like? We'll get into this in another episode when we talk about New Year's resolutions, but it's like 80% of New Year's resolutions fail by the end of February.
Yeah, or like the third week.
Yeah,
or
something
like
insane. We'll look up all that stuff for you. But the point is,
don't go to the gym in January.
But the thing is it's because people are setting goals that don't matter. They just sound good. We borrow intellectual property from one another, instead of actually taking inventory and finding out what matters. But when we're honest, like, the thing that a lot of people would benefit from is if they try to right size their cash flows to address, hey, this is the appropriate amount to be setting aside for taxes. This is the appropriate amount to satisfy my debts that I have. This is the appropriate amount for me to spend on life, and this is the appropriate amount for me to save.
Yeah.
And if we address those four things honestly, we're going to solve a lot of stresses that we can focus on just the overall betterment of our life.
Sure.
So we're really hitting this hard because I really want anyone that's listening, my hope is, and this is what I'm working on too, because I'm really guilty. I'll share a story in just 1 second, but I really hope that we're approaching the end of 2023 and looking at 2024 and being really, really, really honest about things that we need to have happen versus things that we want. And to your point, Bill, if you just want it, great, go get it. But make sure your needs are met. And we just clearly said this is a want.
Yes.
Just be honest.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm not great at this.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest lies I ever told myself, and I say this kind of humorously, is as my daughter started getting a little bit older, I told myself time and time again, she needs an iPad, right? She needed an iPad just for sake of us communicating, but also for my sanity, right? Like, oh, she needs an iPad because if she doesn't have the iPad, she screams and cries.
Yeah.
If she has the iPad, I have peace and quiet, right? So it's one of these things where it's like, the things that we tell ourselves.
Yes.
Like, I never had an iPad when I was a kid.
Yeah.
Because I'm old.
Me too.
Like, I didn't have that.
Yeah.
And so, does my daughter need an iPad? No, she does not. I wanted her to have an iPad. And if I was going to be honest with myself, it removes the stress of, like, I have to do this because it's a need. Whereas if I'm just honest about it and I have the means, I can do it. But if I don't have the means, she doesn't have an iPad.
Yeah.
Right. So I think there's just some honest. Okay. Third and last question. And right after this, we're going to share 3 things that I think can help you avoid falling prey to calling wants needs. But this question is, what if getting enough of something I don't actually need? What if getting enough of wants is actually an insatiable quest? Right? So what if getting enough wants is something that could never be satisfied as a human being?
Yeah. Well, you can always want more. There's there's infinitum things
Yeah.
out there that, we live in a materialistic world. So if you make your needs and wants specifically all about money or wanting more and that sort of thing, there's always something you can go out and buy.
What's that? There's a song, right? Materialistic World,
Material Girl
Material Girl. Maybe that's what I'm thinking of. All right.
by probably Madonna or something. I can't remember. But it's pretty bad.
I think the point of this question and what I think is important here is to understand that we are all subject to falling prey to calling a want a need.
Yeah.
And even if we fix something right now, if there's something that I'm telling myself I need it, and after listening to this, I'm like, that's actually a want. Let's put that on the back burner because I actually do have some needs I need to address. Like I need to pay down this credit card, or I need to pay off this car, or I need to do this. Yeah. I need to increase my savings to 20%, but I want a four-wheeler. Right? Like I've been telling myself I need the four-wheeler because this is now all of a sudden I call it a want. So I'm helping set my own priorities a little bit differently, giving myself space and time.
Yeah.
The problem is like if I fix these things in my mind right now, or my goals, my priorities, my things like my wants and needs, and I put them on the right side of each category, I'm probably going to be right back in the same place in maybe as soon as like next month.
Yeah.
Right? So I think
and it'll get shorter and shorter too.
The point of this question is understanding we all struggle with this.
Yeah.
We all owe it to ourselves to be super honest. It's probably good to have like a partner in this to say, hey, I'm going to be really honest with you right now. I think you're calling it a need, but it is a want.
Yeah.
And you're going to get offended by that probably. But no, Anders, you're missing the point. Like, no, I hear you.
Yeah.
But let's just call it what it is. So I think accountability is important there. But I think if we understand all this, one, we give ourselves some grace. So we're not too hard on ourselves because we're going to mess this up over and over and over again.
Sure.
But the last piece of that is just understanding we should always take inventory of our needs and wants list. Like we should make this a habit to inventory this probably more often than just the end of the year. But maybe even like once a month or once a quarter. Monitor that.
Yeah.
All right. 3 tips, 3 suggestions, three ways to help crush the impulsive like desire to satisfy need wants. Okay. So number 1, call it the overnight test, right? If you're going to buy something, just sleep on it for 72 hours. Okay. Personally, I have increased that for myself up to 30 days. So if it's not something that I need, for example, like toothpaste, food, whatever, shampoo, if it's something that I just want or it's not urgent, I try to leave it, like, for example, in my Amazon cart for 30 days. Or I'll add it to my list of things to buy and I'll put the date next to it and I won't buy it for 30 days. Yeah. So 30 days, that's kind of extreme. So I've worked up to that. I feel pretty confident and because most of the time I'm just like, I forget about it.
Yeah.
But there are hard times when at 30 days, I'm going and buying that thing I'm really excited about.
Yeah.
And it kind of increases like the dopamine of getting it too, because you've been waiting a little bit, you've been anticipating it.
Yeah.
The other one that I have, so 72 hours, and then the other one I call it the stuff quarantine. Mm-hmm. This is your favorite one, right?
I think so.
No, you said this was stupid.
I said this was stupid?
Yeah, you said this one was stupid. The stuff quarantine is simply like, go ahead and go buy what you want.
Yeah.
And then put it in a room or leave it in the garage or something
this was stupid.
for like a week.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you don't end up using it or having to bring it in or having to open it up in 1 week, take it back. So the idea here is like, if you really are, so if you tried the 72-hour test and you're just like, no, I still want this, like I gotta go buy it.
Yeah.
Sometimes we get stuck in our like on loop in our brain.
Yeah.
And we just need to go satisfy the act.
Yeah.
So, but you go and you satisfy the act, and then you're like, man, like I do this all the time with like junk food.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, I just really need Taco Bell tonight. Like I need Taco Bell. And the minute that I go and buy it and I eat like the first taco, I'm just like, this is a mistake. Like I should not have done this, right?
Yeah.
So in this case, you can buy what you need to buy, right? So I've tried the 72-hour test. I still think I want it, but I'm not sure I need it. I go and I buy it and I just leave it in my garage for a week. And if after 1 week I haven't opened it, brought it in, whatever, used it, I'm just going to take it back.
Yeah.
I've satisfied the act. Maybe that was enough to break it, but that's just like a step further. So that's called the stuff quarantine. And the last one is, and I love this one, is the 1 in, 1 out rule.
Yeah.
So for every new thing that I'm going to buy, I got to go through my stuff and find something that I want to give away.
Yeah.
Right.
I like that one.
It increases like generosity, charity. I think if we're really trying to find something to get rid of, it can also help us rediscover things that brought us joy at different times in our life, which may negate the need to go buy the new thing.
Yeah.
It manages clutter, which clutter can cause stress and all that other stuff. So I love the 1 in, 1 out rule. But the importance of differentiating needs and wants, I think, one, helping control our wants. That's 3 ways that we can help to curb the want monster, right?
Yeah.
Keep him at bay and prevent us from, overspending or spending in the wrong places. It can help prevent lifestyle creep. It can help set boundaries and be like, as a consumer, just telling the world, be like, no, I don't need what you're telling me I need. I could want it, but I don't even want it.
Yeah.
Just being in charge.
Yeah. Let's take a break and hear from our sponsor for the episode, and then we'll come back and wrap up.
All right. A few years ago, I had the privilege of working with a wonderful couple that had big goals and an incredible work ethic. They made sacrifices and achieved tremendous success and even got to enjoy an early retirement. But tragically, the wife passed away after just 6 months of that retirement life. This experience shook me to the core and led me to reevaluate how I approach financial planning with my clients. I developed an ideology based on 5 pillars of fitness and happiness, and in no particular order, the pillars of finance, faith, physical and emotional well-being, and mental health. While I'm not a doctor, priest, or psychologist, I believe in the importance of addressing all of these pillars holistically alongside financial fitness. A few months ago, I decided to prioritize my own physical health. I focused on everything from eating well to sleeping better. However, I really struggled to find the right motivation to become a regular at the gym. That's when I reached out to an old friend and fitness professional, Sean Rodman. Sean has been a warfighter in the U.S. Army for 20 years. While serving, he acquired all kinds of fitness certificates and was designated to lead fitness programs for our nation's bravest warriors. Not just the fittest ones heading off to war, but also those injured and needing rehabilitation. When he retired, he started an online fitness company, Parabellum Fitness. He builds workout programs tailored to you, your goals, and even considers your old injuries. He also switches things up from week to week or month to month, so nothing ever gets old. In just a few months, I've experienced better sleep, improved mobility, increased energy, weight loss, and freedom from my old injuries. While I want my clients to achieve incredible financial success, I believe it's all for nothing if you cannot enjoy it. Go check out parabellumfitnessllc.com. That's parabellumfitnessllc.com. Follow them on Instagram or TikTok, really any social media platform. Go follow Parabellum Fitness and reach out to Sean. Set up your first month of programming, mention Money Therapy, and get 25% off. Let's not lose sight of all 5 pillars. Together, let's focus on health and happiness and put energy into creating the best possible life we can. After all, we only get one. All right, we're back.
Back to wrap up.
So the biggest takeaway here is, as you're looking forward to 2024, and you're setting your goals, make sure your goals are rooted. They're coming from a place where you're content and satisfied with where you're at. And if you're not content with satisfied where you're at, that needs to be the goal, is to work on myself until I'm content. We do that typically by taking inventory of things that we've been through in our life, realizing how powerful of human beings we are, and what we've had to fight through to get to where we are today. And if we take all of that inventory, we should feel really proud of what we have.
Yeah.
And then thinking about, okay, this is the growth I want next year.
Yeah.
Make it less about the impulsive wants, and address needing to accomplish those really, really important goals in our life.
Yeah. And I would say, when you're picking your head up and looking out into the future for the next year and you're being grateful for what you have, if you recognize some of those needs and wants within your thought process of planning those goals out, write those down, write the needs down and write the wants down. Practice identifying which is which and use that to incorporate in your goals.
I love it.
So you buy yourself a pair of shoes. If something goes well with, the business, you have that parameter. That can be a want in there too. You can say, okay, if I reach this part, if I get this promotion, if I do this much in sales, whatever in your job, make up a goal for yourself and then incorporate some of those wants, because it's good to reward yourself.
Yeah. I love it. That's great. I think that's a wrap-up thought.
I agree. We'll see you all next week.
Move it on. See you guys. We hope you learned something valuable today. We appreciate you including us in your journey towards financial betterment. It is important to us that you know this is for educational purposes only and not to be considered specific advice for any individual listener. If something we discussed is relevant to you and you have questions about how it might be uniquely applicable to you, please discuss that with a financial professional, or, of course, we are happy to have further conversations with you about your specific questions, needs, or circumstances. We welcome you to reach out to us via our website, harpethwealthpartners.com, or by emailing Brandon at bmc@harpethwealthpartners.com. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice is offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and Harpeth Wealth Partners are separate entities from LPL Financial. The opinions voiced in this material are for general information only and are not to be intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult appropriate qualified professionals prior to making a decision. Investing includes risk, including fluctuating prices and loss of principal. No strategy assures success or protects against loss. All performance referenced is historical and is no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Hypothetical examples presented are not representative of any specific investments. Your results may vary. We want to thank you for your time, and we look forward to having you back next week.